So, let's welcome Adam to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. That is me over there, looking real cute. I'm really fortunate tonight because we're going to talk about kink. It's one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Some of y'all don't know, I'm about to be 38. That's going to happen on Saturday. And I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed professional counselor. I talk a lot about sex because sex therapy literally saved my life. So as we talk about this tonight, and it'll be fun, and we're gonna talk about some sexy things, also know this shit is important to people. So, that being said, we're gonna move forward. Consent is really important. I would ask that you not take any video or photos of the presentation tonight. Part of that is because I have a friend here with me, my little kitten. And I wanna make sure that they are respected as they are. I also want to make sure that we just feel free to talk about kink, because it can be really hard to talk about. And I don't want someone to not ask a question or not feel like they can be open about what they're curious because of a video going on. I'm going to talk about sex tonight, and that's an adult conversation. We're all adults in here. If I get into something you don't want to talk about, that is okay. Some shit can be triggering. You are welcome to excuse yourself quietly. I'm not going to judge you. I do want to say there's a big difference between consensual kink and sex and things like sexual assault and rape. So I acknowledge that everything I'm talking about tonight is with consent, with a consensual partner. And the last thing is my kitten here is my kitten. So don't fucking touch her unless she decides to be touched by you. Does that make sense? Okay, let's see here. Ooh. What unspoken fantasies are in the room? So I asked y'all to write down some of your sexual fantasies you have never told anyone. And I'm just gonna read some that are here in this room. And I would ask that you just listen to them with curiosity and empathy. A lot of times when we see kink, especially like in media, it's like the shock value. It's like CSI, can you believe a furry convention happens? And that's not really what this talk is about. This talk is really more about how to understand kink in a meaningful way that it can support your mental health. So, some of the things that are in this room. Sex with a crying person. Go to a kink party to observe. So, there's a voyeur out there. I want to have sex with my partner behind a foggy, non-see-through glass. That way everyone can see our shadows have some hot sex. My clit is so full and just grows and grows into a huge cock. I then fuck your brains out with it. I want to have sex with a person reading this. Call me. Thank you. I too like to have my ego stroked. Amongst other things. A bad babysitter in which I not only corrupt the brat, but also get caught by mommy and daddy. So, here are so many things that people want. And there's so much in our fantasies that can be helpful as we look into mental health. So one of the things I think is really important is to think about sexual pride versus sexual shame. So the first piece is exploring yourself versus fragmenting parts of the self. So when we explore ourselves with sexual pride, we can understand who we are and what that's about. We use curiosity and empathy to go, oh wow, I really was turned on by that. What was going on for me? Sexual shame doesn't make space for that, right? Sexual shame would say, hey, you filthy pervert, You like feet? Get the fuck out of here, right? Like it's not really supportive or helpful. And just a word about fetishes. I get a lot of people who come to me and say, I like something like feet. And the reality is we fetishize all sorts of stuff, right? Abs, teeth. What the fuck are teeth? Bones in your head. She just has a really nice smile. You sick bitch. Right, so it's silly to me to have shame about things like fetishes, fetishizing parts of the body. When we're fragmented, what that can do is lead to people then not owning a part of themselves, and then that stuff can come out sideways. So typically I see this when people come to me and they say, oh, my partner saw me looking at something online and I think I'm a porn addict. And I'm like, oh, well, one, that's not a thing. But two, right, like it is a fragmented part of the self being expressed still. You can not express your sexuality, but if you don't deal with that, it's gonna create some issues. Kid, could you give me a cup of water? Can you give me a cup of water? Thank you. Come here. Don't act all sad. Oh no, such a good kid. Number two, expression of self versus expression for validation. So sexual pride leads to, hey, this is just who I am, this is what I'm about, right? I really want to be fisted, and that is gonna be like the joy and the fun. And what you see is people really expressing themselves for validation. I don't know what I really am into. What are you into? What do you like? What is safe to say? I work a lot with people who are on dating apps, and like their Grindr will be like, pound me out, and their Tinder's like, I just want a long-term relationship with 2.5 children. And it's not that you can't have both. Right? It's that people are that fragmented, and they're expressing themselves. Thank you so much, Jim. You're so good. They are expressing themselves for validation, and that won't work in the long haul, right? I've been with my primary partner for like 11 years. Bitch, he knows who I am at this point. You can't keep that act up for so long. And what I see is people really get to a point where things can really fuck up their life, and that's not great. It's not fun. Communication about sex versus silence. I have people who choose to only sleep with one person on this planet, come into my office, and not know how to talk about that activity because of sexual shame. How much sense does that make? Can you imagine if you were only gonna cook with one person and you never fucking talked about what you wanted to eat? How spicy you wanted it to be? What you don't want, what you're curious about. It's ludicrous. But we do that with sex. When there's sexual pride, we learn how to stand in our own self and say, this is what I turn myself on for. Where are you at? What do you turn yourself on for? What might work? We have sexual healing on sexual pride. There's so much healing that can happen in sex. I think of sex as like play for adults. And through that play, we can grow and change. And a lot of tonight, the rest of this is going to be about the sexual healing that there is in kink. But without that, when there's sexual shame, there's a lot of harm. I do a lot of relationship boundary violation work, which we would call cheating or affair work. I don't call it that because that shit is pathologizing people and doesn't help. It's shame. There's a lot of relationship boundary violation because people have kept things secret. They haven't owned a piece of themselves. I also see a lot of folks who come in and they've had a happy, wonderful relationship for years and years and years, and that security that they got and that connection has led to finally embracing a part of the self. And maybe that means they're more sexually fluid. Maybe it means they want to be more than monogamous. Maybe it means they have a kink that they can finally talk about. And it's really sad and hard for them in that moment. Because sexual shame didn't allow them to explore that before getting in that relationship. So then they come to me and they're like, what the fuck do we do, dude? There's a lot of things we can do. If you're in that situation, call me. And then we have compulsive sexual behavior versus addiction. So people can definitely use sex to cope with things. I think a lot of people, when we're young, like teenagers, we don't get a lot of autonomy or power. And if you have a chaotic system or stress, looking at porn is one easy way to cope. It gets you out of your shit for a minute. And some people don't learn other ways to cope. That's like the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit. And so, it's pretty often that I see when someone's like, oh, I think I'm a porn addict, and we start breaking it down, that's the shit I'm starting to hear. And I'm like, oh, cool, dude, you're not a porn addict, right? Like, you washed your hands too much because you had OCD. We wouldn't say you're a hand-washing addict. We'd say you struggle with anxiety, and your coping mechanism is this. So taking out the shame. Oh my goodness, I know. So what's a kink versus a fetish? A kink is a sexual behavior or desire that is less conventional, and it's a dip into the taboo. Now, if you ask most people if they are kinky, research shows they say no. You ask about kink behaviors, and most people say yes. So, it's really wild to me because, we live in this world where I think there's so much shame about kink that we don't embrace all they can really do. Now, where that differs from a fetish is an object activity that greatly increases sexual pleasure. Sometimes it's valued more than conventional sexual activities. And I think of it as like a sexual orientation into itself. And so if you think about it on a scale, some people might want to have a dom-sub relationship, 2-4-7. That might be a fetish for them. It's all day, every day. It's greatly a part of their life. And some people are like, oh, I'll do it on stage with my friend, and we'll show them how it's done. Thanks, kid. Side note, I've known my kitten here for many years, and I know this is a big deal to her to be here tonight, because she worships the ground everything. So, how can these things help with mental health? First, let's think about mental health. There's 3 ways that we manage it. One is connection with others or ourselves. So this might be talk therapy. This might be a really empathic friend. This could be journaling. This could be vlogging for ourselves. Another way that we manage mental health challenges is through behavioral changes. If you're depressed and you have a shitty job, if you leave your shitty job, your depression's probably gonna move, And the last piece is medications, right? So some people are gonna use medications because that is gonna be what helps them the most. And any combination of those things are really helpful. Now when we talk about kinks, kink is like a behavior change, right? There's a lot of things that you can get in kink. You can get communication, right? As you negotiate what you want. When you get into aftercare, you get community. So in the world of kink, there's subcultures. And how great is it to just really be seen? I don't know if you can tell I'm aggressively queer. And if some of y'all are too, when I probably got up here, you were like, yes, bitch, I see you. I see your little queer ass. Because we know some things that people who aren't queer just don't know. You feel tied to me, you feel the community already. There can be connection to yourself, to another person, to a bigger identity, right? So let's say you're really into a scene and other people will enjoy watching it, and all of a sudden it's whoa, this moment, we are all connected. We all are getting pleasure out of this, even people who are not participating in it. You get consent, which is wild. I can't tell you how many times people don't feel like they are heard or respected in the world. And the more marginalized you are, right, being a person of color, being a queer person, being a femme person, it is a really big fucking deal to have people hear you and care about you. And then there's care. There's aftercare. There's care about you as a person when you're negotiating boundaries. There's all sorts of care that's available in this. Wrong way. So, let's look at some. I am a human being who has depression. Hard to believe, I know. I'm very sparkly and rainbowy. But I'm someone who has depression. And, for me, my depression comes up when I feel a lack of control, when I feel a lack of connection, when I consider some of the things that have happened in my past, when I think about some of the marginalization that I continue to face as a queer person, as a genderqueer person. And so there's a lot of things that contribute to depression. Our biology, our upbringing, some of the things I just named, there's a lot that can impact. So it usually lessens when people have a sense of control or connection and a hope for things in the future. So I'm gonna tell y'all a story. I have a fetish. I have some clients here I know tonight, so we'll talk about this week. It's be great. I specifically chose a wrestling picture for this one because I have a wrestling fetish. It is a really wonderful community, and the last time that my depression spiked, I have a group of frisky friends who enjoy this fetish with me, and I sent out a meme that I send to all my people when my shit starts to get dark. It's a GIF of Blanche from the Golden Girls saying, "God, I wish I was dead." And I can't tell you how many people in my frisky friend unit responded. Some of them said, "Hey, I got things too, and that sucks, and I love and care for you." Some of them said, "Hey, Daddy, what do you need?" And one of my frisky friends, who lives in New York, was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get on cam tonight and do whatever you tell me to do." Listen, it is hard for depression to stick around. When a twink with no gag reflex is gonna do anything you want him to. These are just facts. The next thing I want to talk about is like anxiety, right? So people can experience anxiety due to a number of factors: biology, upbringing, lack of control, past trauma, fear of future harm, and being overstimulated. And one of the reasons I'm really excited to have my kitten here tonight is because my kitten has some anxiety. And it often manifests in OCD and agoraphobia. And so it's a big fucking deal that she's here. And part of the reason she's here is because she knows I'm in control, right? I laid out the boundaries out front. No pictures, can't fucking touch her. She doesn't belong to you. So it can be really, really empowering for people to get to like feel more grounded to themselves, to be in the present moment, to like interrupt difficult thoughts. So I think about like things like bondage, right? You know, if you kind of go new age when you think about dealing with anxiety, we might say ground yourself, get really focused, be in the moment. You know, it's really hard not to be in the moment when you're tied up. So you can be in a position where if you're with people you trust and you feel good, all of a sudden you're pushed into being present. And your anxiety can dissipate for a little bit. Someone else can take control for a bit. So it's an amazing way that like we can life hack our mental health challenges. So here's some things I want you to ask yourself. What can kink do for me? How could your sexuality be a support to your mental health? What could you say to yourself to reduce any sexual shame that you might feel? What is one thing you can do this week to celebrate your sexuality? So I am very fortunate, y'all. I do lots of sex positive talks, and Packaged Menswear gave me some very fun sex toys. And I told my kitten that I would let her pick someone in the audience to take home a lovely package from them. So, come here, kitten. I told her to find someone sexy I can flirt with. Yes. They might be partnered, that's okay. Listen, it's 2020, people are more than monogamous. Who's gonna get it? What's in there is a anal. Ooh, do you know what I'm gonna say? Anal file. Yes, an anal play starter kit. Mm-hmm. Rump rockers. Uh-huh. Who you gonna give it to, kitten? Oh, the bar staff? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Congratulations. Thank you, kitten. You did such a good job. Come here. Oh, you know. Oh, you good girl. With all that, y'all know my podcast. Y'all are some beautiful beasts. We're gonna have some questions. So, where's Amy? Yes! Come on up.
All right, friends. Close it in. I want quality questions. Who has the best question? Gonna go with you. What you got?
So, a previous partner of mine is a survivor of and for the longest time when I found out this story, I hated it. And I found out months later, many realized that the reason why I had so much rage was because I had this but I still struggle with that because I feel fear, shame, anxiety, being like that person, which I don't think I'll ever be. Those fantasy stories fantasy. How do I deal with that?
How do you reconcile the dichotomy between fantasy and real life activity that could cause harm?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you so much for being brave and asking it. There are a lot of things that we think about doing in our lives. So I can't tell how many people I want to slap, but I don't, right? So just because we fantasize about something or think about something doesn't necessarily make it bad. I think of it as when people have fantasies that might be challenging to laws or the consent of other people, I get curious with it and we explore some of what that dynamic might be. And then we talk about ways that could happen, right? So like a really popular fantasy for people, oftentimes people tell me they have a rape fantasy. I call it a ravishing fantasy, right? Because rape is activating as fuck. So in a ravishing fantasy, someone wants to be taken advantage of. And it's just the ability to go, cool. There are people in the world who want that. How do you might connect to them? So if people have fantasies about someone who's like underage, like one, that's a lot that's in porn, right? There's a lot of like, this person's like a teenager and they're like 25 and smoking cigarettes offset. So that exists. And there's like lots of healthy ways to manage that. Everything from writing your own erotica, looking for partners who play the role. Like I'm married to my husband now for, gosh, we've been together for 11 years. So he's like 40, he looks like a fucking 12-year-old. He's like the tiniest, cutest little Cajun. I think the swamp water like preserved him. So like there's lots of ways to, when you take shame out, right? There's lots of ways to go, how could I figure this out in a way that works for me? So thank you.
All right, that was an excellent place to start out. Is there anybody up in the balcony this time? I'm not hearing a woo-woo real loud. All right, we'll look down here in this often neglected section. Back towards the bar, back row. Yeah.
How do you process your boundaries with your partner? Like, you have a kitten. Do you discuss it beforehand, or do you discuss it as it happens? What would be a play scenario?
So, how do you process boundaries between partners?
Yeah, so it's different for different partners. I've known my kitten here for like 6 years. So we have a pretty easygoing relationship. We kind of know each other, we know what we want. This is the first time we've ever played in any sort of way, so it's hilarious to me. But like I have partners who are new. If we're gonna talk about things, we talk about hard boundaries and soft boundaries. Hard boundaries, things I know I want, know I don't want. Soft boundaries, things I'm interested in, but I don't know until I get there. And then we'd use the stoplight system of communication. So in the moment, green, harder, stronger, faster, I like it. Yellow, check in with me. Maybe my arm went to sleep because it's tied up. Maybe you slapped me in a way that triggered my emotional trauma. Maybe I'm just like needing a glass of water. And then red means we need to stop and move to aftercare. And aftercare is anything that if someone's being objectified, if they're giving up their authority to another person, that they might need to feel respected and connected to make it back to everyday living. So that could be a sandwich, that could be cuddling, that could be talking. So there's a lot of ways to communicate. One of the things I really love about kink as a support to mental health is it makes us go, what do I truly want? How do I find my voice for that? And how do I connect with people who are willing to negotiate that with me? And it's not uncommon for folks who are exploring kink with me to find that they have better communication skills in everyday living. Right? You get good at negotiating. You get good at saying, oh, what does this mean to you? What can we do? How do we make this work? My kitten's also a sex therapist, so she's very smart.
Just a little something to add. I was going to actually use this. Oh, can you hear me now? Under my mask. I was going to use this as an example. We've known each other for 6 years. Like you said, this is the first time I've gone on stage with a kitten mask. But when I expressed to Adam a few weeks ago that I was struggling a lot with my agoraphobia, which at this point I've looked at February and I think I've gone out of my house 3 days. So it's been pretty bad. And so this was something that he knew that I was kind of missing in my life. And kink has been such good therapy for me that when it's been, something that I think I could use a little bit more of in my life. He was like, well, you can come on stage with me.
Yeah.
And it was a nice way for us to connect as well as it's therapeutic.
Yeah. And what's wild is I did supervision years ago with my kitten. And she would say, oh, I'm really interested in serving the kink community, but she was not openly kinky. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, this bitch is a freak. I know it. Right? It takes one to know one. And I think in our dynamic, like, I've made it okay for you to be more and more true to your own self and be seen. So
I came out of the closet because of you.
yeah.
Very
I was like, you're like a brown queer person. What do you think about this case? And you're like, oh fuck, I've never called myself queer.
That's actually the whole story, yes.
Other questions? Oh gosh, Amy, you have a plethora of people to pick from.
I like it. This is amazing.
When you were talking earlier about depression in kink, and most of your examples had to do with relying on your circle of friends to help support you. But a lot of depressed people I know feel very socially isolated. So is there a way for people to have a solo kink, or do they need to really focus on trying to find somebody to play with?
Talk to us about solo kink.
I think one of the things that really can help people is connected to your own sexuality. So let's say you make your own erotica. So in that moment, you don't have anyone, let's say you're out in the middle of fucking nowhere, one of the square states. And you're like, fuck it, I'm alone here. The fuck do I do? There is the ability to make your own erotica. So that could be using video, that could be using pictures. You get to be creative. I think also one of the things that has helped me, so in my wrestling fetish, there's wrestling enthusiasts around the world. So I can get on Skype and I have friends all over the world that I've never met in real life. And we could sext about wrestling. We could just talk. I have a lot of them who are just oh, it's been a shit day, dude, and I just need some support as a person. And I'm someone who often is a frisky friend to people. So if I'm gonna have you close to me, I'm gonna treat you like a human. So sometimes people can't connect in real life. Sometimes they're limited because of their own challenges of getting outside of themselves. So one of the ways to do that is making your own. You can also do it online. And then one of the things I work with people who are depressed is how do you create a system for yourself, because that is part of depression. When my depression is real bad, I can fold in on myself. That's why I just send out the GIF. So I've built up this system to support me. So I teach people how to do that. I did not know. Yes.
For me, you mentioned the solo kink. This is why I'm a kitten. Like, I discovered kink when I was, I think, 17. I'm turning 33 this year. And for the half of that point where it's been like a big part of my identity, currently having no one to take out anything on me as a masochist. The kitten play is so new. Like, it's not even a year old for me. And whenever you mentioned feeling isolated, you have your ways of reaching out and connecting with people. I like to connect with my cat and my dog, like, on my couch, especially with chronic illness. So I isolate even more, and this is my way of still being able to enjoy kink at home on my couch. So.
Cool. Any more questions? Oh, I just realized those are tuxedo pants, bitch. Yes.
Good pants. So we have a Twitter question.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Twits.
Yep. Twits and tweets. This person is asking for some recommendations for local places that are kink friendly to buy sex toys.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of places in Austin. Package Menswear sponsors me a lot, so I say yes for them. They carry stuff for all genders. There is Q Toys. That's a little bit more high end. You get some like organic lube. Right? It's organic. There is like Adult Megaplex, which is down on 35, South 35, which is huge. So any of those places could be really useful. And then online. Oh, Forbidden Fruit, yes, bitch. Forbidden Fruit and Q Toys also do a lot of classes for people who are exploring kink. So if you're interested in something like rope play, it's a great way to like learn. It's just go to a course, and sex shops are a great place to do that.
Did you want to add anything? All right, cool. So let's see what we've got in here. I think we might have time for one or two more questions. Let's see. I don't think I've heard from you tonight. Oh.
I'm very famous.
So, way to call me out on my face blindness. All right.
It's a really good question, though.
I like the confidence. What you got?
How do you navigate being a part of the community and serving?
Ooh. How do you navigate being part of the community and serving the community?
Yes. Talks like this, right? Like, so being able to say, hey, you're going to see me in sex positive spaces. And so if you don't want that from a mental health professional, don't fucking pick me, right? There's a lot of people who I know do this work who might play with like their own like little inner circle. So an old supervisor who has like a group of 5 people that she plays with, and that's it. So she would love to play with more, but she's like, look, this makes the money, this is what I gotta do. Some of it too is recognizing, like for me, making sex positive spaces, making people feel free to connect and figure this stuff out is actually like beautiful work. And I can play with anyone, right? I can get on Grindr and be cute and do it in a minute. I can't change people's lives. I can't like create a space where people can be the next level of themselves in a way they couldn't imagine. So there's so much more, and not sounding like too fucking granola, but there's so much more that I get out of creating this space for people.
All right, we've got time for precisely one more question. Who has the best one? Is it you?
Definitely her.
All right. What you got? Bring us home.
So what I was wondering is, in an era where there's lots of pop culture memes and books and garbage out there telling people how BDSM is supposed to be, if someone was interested in exploring how to actually negotiate consent or what actual experiences are like, where would you direct those people?
Yes.
So to rephrase.
Oh, sorry. I love to talk.
Don't get out of line.
Yeah. We know who the real Tom is here.
Not wrong. Everyone has their roles. So, I don't even remember the question. Oh, yes. Where do we get good information about how to
Because function, 50 shades of gray.
Yes. So, how do we get good information?
Good
about practicing
information.
kink?
I'm a big fan of Instagram. There's a lot of, especially like women of color, black women of color, doing fucking the Lord's work on Instagram for sexual health. So one of the things is being able to like listen to things like podcasts, like we're talking tonight as well. Who do you want to hear? There's Sex with Dr. Jess. So she's out of Canada. She's Jamaican, Chinese, and Canadian. There's Sex Positive Families, if you have kids and you want to talk about things like porn or sex with your kids, and that's Melissa. She's based out here in Austin. There's, oh yeah, even if you don't have children.
She was a verified speaker a couple of years ago.
She has been. There's Goody Howard, who is Ask Goody on Instagram. There's Tanya Bass. She is out of North Carolina. She's on Instagram. There is Unhushed here in Austin, which teaches pleasure-focused, inclusive sex ed to middle schoolers up. So there's all these places to go. One of the things that I use for myself is if I don't see queer people or people of color represented, it's probably not going to be good work, right? So like, that's why I don't fuck with things like sex addiction, because like I took the quiz and like the first question was like male or female, and I was like, well, we're gonna have some problems because she's genderqueer. Right, so look around and see what's going on there. Oftentimes, because of stigma, sexuality, things like BDSM play, you could talk to like a professional dom. So here in Austin, you could pay like Nikki Devon. She'll fucking teach you how to choke a bitch. She'll teach you how to like do impact play, right? So there are people who teach you who'll do it. It's a lot for the community. There's FetLife, some of y'all might know FetLife or not. You can go to a munch, which is like a meetup for a play party. It's not going to be play there, but you can meet people in the community and start to get a feel of things. And just how people talk, right? So if someone tells you, oh, I don't believe in safe words. No, fuck that shit. Mm-mm. No. Someone's like, I don't believe in aftercare. I'm like, oh girl, no, thank you. Like there's a responsibility in doing any sort of play with authority. So, yeah, that's all my stuff. Somebody got anything? You're like, good. Yes. Just get down. There you go.
I was going to mention on FetLife, there's specific groups like SOD that let me just look down here. That they do like classes every second Friday. A lot of it's held at places like Collab or Friends. And in FetLife, it's more readily available. There are secret groups on Facebook, but they're secret, so you have to know someone to get at it. I'm sure.
And then just kick it with people like me, because I'll fucking have all those people around me and anything that's like bullshit, I'll be like, no, girl, no. Cool. What?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Yes. I just want to add one really sexy thing you can do tonight, especially if you're trying to get laid by anyone you're here with. Make sure you treat the bar staff well and tip them, because they are doing a service for you.